Hello beautiful fam! Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. It has been a hot minute since I sat in front of the camera and talked to you guys, and I missed you guys so much. I don't do this type of video very often, but I wanted to sit down today and tell you guys about my entire experience with my health journey, which if you guys are new here, that is why I've been taking a break for a month or so. I did call it Queen of Tears, which I'll explain later in the video. I promise it makes sense in my head. But yeah, I'm just gonna be sharing with you guys my health journey. I do want to say a quick disclaimer. Obviously, the medical field is not my expertise, and this is just my own experience. I just wanted to share it with you guys in case this could help anyone going through something similar. If the medical field, health, or surgery type of information is sensitive to you, you can watch any of my other videos because this one is going to be solely focused on my health throughout the past couple of months. Feel free to log out if you don't feel comfortable listening to that kind of information. But without further ado, let's get into this video and my whole health journey of how I became the Queen of Tears. I just made a cup of tea so we can cozy up. It honestly kind of feels like a podcast, like a sit-down podcast between us. I don't know if you can tell the audio difference from most of my vlogs, but I am currently using a microphone. I did want to give a shout out to Movo. This is not a sponsor, they just gifted this to me, but I have been looking for a good quality, affordable microphone. This is the WMX2 Duo. It's a set that comes with 2 different mics and 1 receiver, which is on my camera right now. And I'm actually wearing a tiny little mic. I don't know if you guys can see it. You can use it while you're vlogging, a video like this where we're just sitting down and talking, just so many different uses. If you guys like it, let me know so I will use it more often. I am such a J, so I usually record every single thing on my notes or my journal. So I am going to start from the way beginning. This is not rehearsed or anything like that. We're literally just going through this together. The beginning of the notes starts in February of this year. I went to the hospital for my annual visit, and I remember I was feeling really faint and just not the best that day. I didn't think much of it because I just thought it was fatigue and I was just really tired. A couple of weeks later, I started feeling an electric pain down my right arm, and I thought this was really unusual because I've never felt pain like this before. So I called my doctor to tell him the symptoms. At this point, the pain was not severe at all. I was just concerned because I actually grew up having a lot of health anxiety. I've realized through this whole journey that it's such a blessing to even just be healthy. But this time I was a little concerned, so I decided to tell the doctor. He told me that there was nothing wrong externally, so I should probably just wait it out for a month or so, which is exactly what I did. The pain did keep happening throughout the next couple of weeks when I would cough or sneeze or exert a lot of force. Even when I would laugh out loud, I just kept brushing it off until this one day, the pain was a 10 out of 10. I literally felt like I was going to cry. And I would say I have a pretty high pain tolerance. On top of the pain from my right arm, I also felt tingling on my fingers and my whole arm was sore. I didn't really know how to describe the pain, but I'm glad that I wrote it down because it's very important to know your symptoms when you go to the hospital. Finally, after over a month, I visited my doctor to get an in-person checkup. I explained all of my symptoms in detail and how long it's been happening, how bad the pain was, and he then referred me to an MRI scan. My doctor was just guessing that it'll probably be a couple of discs or so in my spine. I feel like he knows how to tell me the facts without freaking me out too much because he probably knows that I'm gonna freak out if he says it in a very scary way. Also, I'm gonna forget about my tea. So after I got the MRI center actually referred me to a neurologist because they saw that there was something unusual in my spine. So at this point, I had just gotten a spinal cord MRI. There are different types of MRIs. There are different parts of your body that you need to get. So first I got the spinal MRIs, and then eventually I also got the full spine and my brain area as well. But my initial visit to the neurologist, he actually told me that there was some fluid in my spinal cord. But when he saw my external movements and when I explained my everyday life, he told me I probably shouldn't be too worried about it because usually people with severe cases will have a lot larger symptoms such as not being able to move part of their body or having extreme headaches. However, he did request me for another lab, a couple other MRIs, and he also referred me to another doctor who was a neurosurgeon. He told me that even though he is a neurologist, he doesn't specialize in the field of of spine and brain. So it would be better for me to get a checkup from a neurosurgeon who is more specialized in that field. So this whole process was the span of a couple of months, meeting many different doctors, having many different MRIs, different lab tests. It was honestly pretty overwhelming, but at this point, I still wasn't too concerned. Then, as most of you guys know, I actually went on a solo trip to Korea. I think I just needed a break, and I had scheduled the neurosurgeon appointment, but I wouldn't be able to see him until the end of my solo trip anyways. Because I knew it wasn't an urgent case, I told myself I would just go to Korea, take a nice little solo trip, come back, and then figure it all out. Which honestly I think was a good decision, because if I stayed at home, I would just be filled with anxiety and worry for things I couldn't control. We all know that that leads nowhere. As soon as I come back from Korea, got a blood test, another MRI, I think even before my jet lag had completely gone away, and within that week, I visited my neurosurgeon and found out some news that I wasn't expecting. And by the way, I went to this visit by myself because I was firmly convinced that there was nothing wrong. I thought that I would go to the neurosurgeon, they would tell me I have maybe a couple discs, but I'll be fine. So that was what I was expecting. However, I received a diagnosis that day from my neurosurgeon after he analyzed all of my MRIs and lab results. I had already known that I had some fluid in my spinal cord, but I had no idea what that truly meant and what it can lead to. My doctor basically diagnosed me with two different diagnoses. The first one is called Chiari malformation. I had no idea what he was talking about. I did not like bio or chem or any sciences for that matter when I was a student. So it's fair to say that I had very little knowledge about the medical field. Through this experience, I've not only learned so much about my diagnosis, but also I feel like I can really emotionally empathize when people are receiving diagnoses. Obviously, my diagnosis is not the same as everyone, and I was so grateful that this was something that I could recover from. But when I initially heard the news, I think I was too shocked to process. I told myself I couldn't cry and I needed to hold it together until I told my family all the news. I was trying to be really strong. Basically, to explain what a Chiari malformation is, actually, I'm gonna look it up because I don't want to say the wrong thing and potentially mess this up for someone who really needs it. According to Google, a Chiari malformation is a condition in which brain tissue extends into the spinal canal present at birth. It occurs when part of the skull is abnormally small. Treatment may involve monitoring and surgery. That is the official definition according to Google, but the way that my neurosurgeon explained it was a lot more easy to understand because he knew that I wasn't familiar with these terms. It's basically when your skull and your brain is abnormally formed in a way where the fluid from my brain can't flow properly through to the rest of my body. That fluid had nowhere else to go, so it kept piling up in my spinal cord. So that's the way that I understood it. And not only that, but he also told me that I have another concern in my brain called AVM. I also had no idea what that meant, but it basically means I have a tangle of blood vessels inside my brain. It can happen anywhere in your body, but for me, it was just in my brain. When I found that out, I think I was just like, what is going on? Because not only did I get a diagnosis for one major thing that I might need to get surgery for, but I also had another thing that I had no idea about. These two things were probably since birth. I really learned the importance of getting regular checkups and also just a simple fact that we cannot control our future and we don't know what tomorrow's gonna bring. One comfort to know was that God had protected me throughout the entire process up until 23 years of age, and that this was not just by chance that I didn't have more symptoms or that something major would have happened to me. I truly believe that it was a gift, and that is something to be so grateful for. So yeah, I did see a light at the end of the tunnel. I did know that everything was going to be okay, but I think in that exact moment I felt a lot of just confusion and overwhelmingness. It didn't help that I was alone. Maybe it did actually. I like to process things alone sometimes. I would say I'm a pretty independent person, so maybe it did help that I was alone. Who knows? Everything happens for a reason, right? So all that to say that it was quite a difficult diagnosis to hear, but he did tell me that there are methods to cure it, for example, surgery or radiotherapy. And he also asked me if I wanted to proceed with surgery. In the beginning, I did not think surgery was going to be my best option. I obviously wanted to go over with my parents, and I also told him that I wanted to focus on one diagnosis at a time. So because the fluid in my spinal cord was causing symptoms and the other one thankfully was not, I decided to figure out the first diagnosis and move on to the second later. I also wanted to make sure I was mentally and emotionally okay. I'm just going to check that my mic is still working. Okay, I think we are good. Overall, more than a physical battle, this was a very big emotional battle for me because I had never struggled with any major health issues. I've never had any surgeries, broken any bones, knock on wood. This was all very new to me. I think the hardest thing was telling my mom. I'm gonna start crying right now. My mom is just such a sweet soul and she is so caring. There's this thing that I feel like is just a universal mom thing, that when something happens to their kids, they automatically think it's their fault for not doing something, for not taking care of them enough. It is completely false because moms are the strongest people in the world and they do everything for their children that they can, if they are good moms, obviously. I actually called my mom on my way from the hospital because she was expecting me to update her, and I remember telling her in the most even and non-emotional tone everything that the doctor told me. I think I just wanted to stay strong for her and for myself, but I was also just in denial mode, and I think I just wanted to tell her without breaking down. Ended the call and I just started crying. I just was a mess. I also was seeing Patrick later that day, so I saw him in person, and I remember him coming and asking me how everything went. I asked him for a hug, and as he was hugging me, I told him I think I might need surgery. And I remember him just shaking and saying, "What do you mean?" It just made all my bottled up emotions release, and I just started bawling, all my tears streaming out. But yeah, it was quite a journey. I think that was honestly the hardest part, just telling people. After a couple weeks of processing, started telling my close friends and my other family members. I'm usually a very open book, so even if I meet you for like the first time, if we're vibing it out and I feel like I can trust you, I will tell you my whole life story. But for this, I think it was such a different thing because every time I would tell the story, I would just feel those emotions all over again, and it honestly led me to becoming more introverted and not wanting to hang out with a lot of people because I just felt like people would not be able to understand if I didn't explain to them the full story of what I was going through. I definitely felt a little more closed off at the time, like a seashell. I don't know why I thought of that all of a sudden. Yeah, it was just a time where I was really just taking care of my own emotions and making sure I hung out with people who would really give me comfort and bring me joy. Oh my gosh, I'm already running out of battery. We're not even halfway through. This part, I'm just gonna keep it short because it was such a long array of emotions and hospital visits, but I'm just gonna sum it up. After seeing a couple more neurosurgeons, they basically told me that every single doctor you go to is going to tell you that surgery would be the best option in your case. Obviously, this differs per doctor's opinion, per diagnosis, but for my specific case, because I was still young and because my symptoms were not too extreme, surgery would be the best option to prevent anything else from happening. I knew that I wasn't going to be able to just live with the fact that anything could happen, and I told my mom that I wanted surgery. At first, it was really hard for her to accept that, but I think after so many visits and hearing the same thing over and over again, my family decided that that was the best option for me, and so we came to that conclusion that I was going to get surgery. Okay, so I feel like it's been a while since I've been filming, so I am going to take a quick break and then move along to how the whole surgery process went. If you guys need to go use the bathroom or if you need to grab some snacks, and I also have a little surprise that I'm gonna bring right now. I will see you guys very soon. I am back with the cake. I do realize that this may be very extra to some of you, but I think it's the little things like this where you can really appreciate and celebrate when you overcome the downs of life, because there will be downs. It's kind of like celebrating a piece of you that overcame something difficult, so that in the future you can remind yourself that you went through difficult things and you are a strong person and you will overcome the next obstacle as well. First of all, I wanted to show you this beautiful cake. Let's get a little closer because this deserves a shout out of its own. Look at the detail of this cake. And most importantly, the words on the cake say Queen of Tears, hear me out. In the beginning, when I found out my diagnosis, I actually was watching the drama Queen of Tears. If you guys aren't familiar, it is an iconic drama that came out earlier this year. I actually posted a reel of me crying because I cried like every single episode of that drama, and a lot of you related to it, so I'm guessing you guys are familiar with it. But when all of this happened, I decided I'm going to make it into a drama. And I guess this is one of my coping mechanisms. I like to romanticize and delulu things sometimes, and this is a prime example. So I decided right before my surgery that I was going to get myself a recovery cake, and I received it after my surgery. Obviously, mine wasn't clearly a brain surgery, but it did have to do with my brain. So I decided that I would just call myself the Queen of Tears and I would overcome this battle like she did. That's the story of why I put Queen of Tears on here. This was actually given to me by Ollie Molly Cake. If you guys are in OC or around the LA area, she is amazing. Not only does she make beautiful cakes, but they're actually really delicious. I'm gonna actually have a piece right now and show you guys the inside. But first, we're gonna put a candle, light her up, have a little celebration together, and then we will eat a bite of the cake. Oh my gosh, I think it's about to break, but I'll still use it. I actually saved this cake so that I could light it up and blow it out with you guys, because you guys have been part of my entire journey as well, and I'm just very grateful for you guys. So we're gonna blow her out together, and because we're being extra, I'm just gonna put on this crown and we're gonna blow it out. Okay, I'm gonna put on the little candle. I'm scared I'm gonna break it. It's okay, she's imperfect like all of us are. Sister actually got me this electric lighter. Here's to health and happiness for 2025 to the beautiful fam. Yay! I will take the crown off now. We'll put her back on Miffy. Actually, fun fact, this Miffy has been with me since the beginning. When I first found out the news, Patrick actually bought me this as a little comfort doll, and she has been with me ever since. I'm also only gonna eat a tiny piece because I want to celebrate with my family later as well. Oh, I'm shaking. Beautiful. Here's the inside of the cake. It looks gorgeous. I just realized my mic had fallen off, so I put that back on. I'm gonna try the grape first. Okay, now the frosting. The thing I really love about Ollie Molly's cakes, the frosting part, is not too buttery, not too sweet. It's the perfect amount where it doesn't feel like she put artificial frosting, and the inside is so moist and so spongy. That is literally the perfect combination. This is not even a sponsor. I genuinely just love her cakes. Okay, one more bite and then we'll continue. Let's continue on for the rest of the story. The rest of it, I'm basically just going to recap my entire surgery experience and just tell you guys how it all went. I want to go over that I had a lot of misconceptions of how things happen before, during, and after the surgery. I think my perceptions of surgery have always been based on movies and K-dramas and shows and all of that. Expectation versus reality, you know? I do want to preface that this is just my own experience at my own hospital. I won't be disclosing the hospital or any of the names of the doctors, obviously, just for privacy, but here's a general sense of a couple of things that I expected versus the reality of things. First of all, I always thought that when you were getting surgery, you get checked in, change into your hospital clothes, everyone's just waiting there with you before it happens, you get wheeled into the operating room. You know, in the K-dramas when they have the scenes where they're rushing with you to the hospital and saying everything's gonna be okay while the patient is on the hospital bed. Yeah, that did not happen. I also thought thought that once you wake up from the anesthesia, if you're going under during the surgery, you automatically see your family or whoever's with you, because that's how it's always portrayed in the K-dramas. They wake up and then they have everyone around them like waiting for them to wake up, which maybe it does happen like that in other surgeries, but in mine it did not. So this is how it actually played out. I arrived at the hospital 2 hours before my surgery at 6:30 a.m., which is honestly really early for me, so I had to wake up around 5 a.m. Always make sure you get good sleep, obviously, the night before. My surgery didn't happen until around 8:30 a.m., so I was basically waiting for 2 hours just on the hospital bed after I changed into my gown and everything, and they actually only let 2 people in at once. So my family and Patrick had to alternate going back and forth, 2 people at a time, but it was okay because everyone got to be there and talk to me before my surgery. And honestly, I was kind of chilling. I literally just laid down and I was watching TV from the monitor that they had in my room, and I wasn't as scared as I thought I would be. Maybe it was because I was really tired. I also had heard previously that you have to tell the nurse if you want to see the doctors beforehand, but the nurse on duty that day told me that it is actually obligatory for the doctors, the surgeons, and the anesthesia person, whoever's going to be working on you, to actually come before the surgery, introduce themselves, and answer any questions that you have. So that was actually really comforting because my surgeon came to me before, explained the procedure again, answered any questions that I might have. It's always nice to have a face-to-face with your surgeon before your surgery. My friend who's studying in the medical field had actually told me beforehand that every single person on that team, whether it be the anesthesia person, the person checking the vitals, your doctor, your assistant surgeon, all of them will be monitoring you constantly to make sure that your vitals are good throughout the entire surgery. I was honestly worried that I wouldn't be able to control all the different factors when I was getting the surgery because I would be completely under anesthesia. That was another frightening factor because I've never been under anesthesia before. One thing that I did find really interesting though is that they told me that I would go under anesthesia while I was in the operating room. But right before my surgery, when I was about to get wheeled into the operating room, the anesthesia person actually came and put something in my IV telling me that it was an appetizer. I don't know why he used those words, but I just assumed it was like a term for vitamins or something like that. I did not expect to knock out right after. I don't even remember being wheeled into the operating room. All I remember is saying bye to everyone. Oh, the other note is that nobody could come with me to the operating room, which honestly I was really scared about because I expected at least one person to be able to go with me. So I was getting really sad about that. But it didn't even matter because I knocked out before even going into the operating room. So let me know if you guys think that's normal, or maybe I was just too tired and knocked out from like a calming medicine or something like that. If that ever happened to you, let me know. The next thing I remember is waking up on the hospital bed after surgery. The nurse was obviously checking my vitals, making sure my IV was good and all of that. And the first thing I asked her is, do you have any Vaseline? Because I had accidentally bit my lip during the surgery. This is a little bit of a more TMI. If you guys are not very good with like surgery things, you can skip like 20 seconds. But my surgery was on the back of my head, so they had to make an incision, and I also got around 20 stitches. It's honestly kind of crazy now that I think about it, but it is all recovered now. I got my stitches out and everything. So I was laying face down when I was getting the surgery, and obviously there was room for me to breathe and all of that. But yeah, because I was laying face down, I think I accidentally bit my lip, so my lip inside was really bruised and my lips were so dry. And one thing I cannot stand is when my lips are dry. So I literally asked my nurse, and then after that I think I just like knocked out again. For my surgery, they told me that you have to be under recovery for around 1 to 2 hours. During that time, you're not allowed to have any visitors or see anyone because they just want to make sure that you're fine and your vitals are good. So that was also pretty new to me. My surgery actually lasted around 3 hours, and then that recovery time was around 2 hours, so total 5 hours. My family was just waiting outside for me. Thankfully, there were amenities like a coffee shop and a cafeteria, so they could rest there while they were waiting. But yeah, for me, it was just a blink of an eye and I was awake. So that was a very interesting feeling. And after the recovery period, I was sent to the ICU, which is the intensive care unit. Maybe I was only in the ICU for one night, but it felt like a long night because every single hour they would wake me up to check my blood pressure. They would ask me questions such as, what is your birthday? What is your name? Why are you here? So I wasn't really able to get a full night's sleep. And God bless Patrick because he was the one sleeping on the sofa and taking care of me during that first night of the ICU. Also, bless that nurse who was taking care of me. I gained a huge respect for nurses and doctors during this whole time, especially ICU night nurses. I literally had to call her every time I felt like I needed medicine, which was every couple of hours. I couldn't even go to the bathroom by myself, and she was actually the sweetest nurse. I don't remember her name, but she had pigtails and she looked so cute. Literally heard one of her patients screaming in the hallway because of pain, and I remember telling her she needs you more than I do, so please go help take care of her. And she was just the sweetest. Anyways, nurses, you are something else. I finally moved from the ICU to a double room. The double room was honestly one of the worst experiences because I was just not feeling well at the time, and I remember I was just every single thing. I felt too nauseous to eat for like the first day or so, and I was also having a lot of visitors. Obviously, I was really grateful for all of the visitors that came, but I think it did really drain my energy. And another tip is that when you're at the ICU, your visitors aren't allowed to bring you anything such as flowers or even food, I believe. So the next couple of days, I finally was able to eat a little bit, and I felt so much better when I could actually have nutrients in my body. Things like porridge and stuff is good too, but I honestly was craving more solid foods, and the thing that I actually craved the most when I was recovering was fruits. So if you are visiting anyone who just got surgery, I would totally recommend bringing them fresh fruits like apples, grapes, oranges, pears, whatever. I think I just loved the refreshing feeling after all of that nausea. The main thing that I was struggling with for my surgery in particular was that I couldn't really move my neck or my head, so my shoulders were really stiff, and I was basically in bed the whole time until I had enough energy in the last couple of days to start walking around with an aid, drank a lot of water, and ate a lot of food and laid down. That's all I did the entire hospitalization. I think the best part was definitely when I was able to get into the single room because there was just so much more space. I had a nurse who was a lot more attentive and had more time to take care of me. I also had a bathroom of my own. There was also a table where I could eat and a sofa where my family could sit and rest, and I'm so grateful that I got that room. I don't know if it's given to every single patient, but that single room was definitely the most comfortable experience out of the other rooms. So that is basically my entire hospitalization experience, of course, just summed up in a whole. If you guys have any other questions about my procedure or about just anything in general from this whole story, please leave it down below. I hope that this story was a comfort to some of you guys who may be struggling with health issues or just an interesting story to hear about. I got my stitches out a couple of weeks ago, and I'm actually recovering very smoothly. I stopped taking medicine around 2 days after I came back from the hospital, and staying at home and resting was honestly the best thing to heal my body. The next video is actually going to be a what I eat in a week. At home while I was recovering, I had some friends visit, and it was just a really nice relaxing experience. But now I'm officially able to go out, get some fresh air, and hang out with my friends outside as well, which has been really nice. I also haven't been driving, so my lovely friends have been passenger princessing me all around, and I have been having a couple of muscle strains. I don't know if it's a serious thing that I need to get checked out, but I definitely will call the hospital, and I'll keep you guys updated. The next week's video is going to be a very exciting prep for travel video because I'm going to be going somewhere for the end of fall / winter time. Very excited about that. Thank you so much for all of the love and the support that you guys have shown me throughout this entire process. I can't wait to get back on into the content grind so I can make more videos for you guys, and let me know if you have any vlog suggestions as well so that I can keep them in mind. But that was my story of how I became the Queen of Tears / just my post-surgery experience. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!